My friend, I don't know who you are, where you've been, or how far you've wandered, but I feel deep in my soul that somebody listening today, some woman, some daughter, some sister, some mother, has reached the edge of hesitation, the edge of complacency, the edge of fear, and I'm here to tell you, this is when she starts the chase. You see, all her life she was told to wait, to be quiet, to stay small, to accept less, but heaven has declared otherwise. And when God speaks, really speaks, something inside her stirs. She doesn't just wake up. I says you must watch closely because this is not a speech. It is a divine interruption. It is not motivation. It is a summons. If you've ever wondered, when will she begin? Or, what will it take to ignite the fire? Let me show you the exact moment. The moment she stops running from, and starts running to. Because when she starts the chase, the ground shakes. She chases purpose, not popularity. She chases calling, not comfort. She chases truth, not trends. And when she does, when she truly begins, hell trembles. The Bible says the righteous are as bold as a lion. And tonight, I say this. The lioness has heard the roar. You who are watching, don't miss the moment. Because when she starts the chase, you will need to decide, will you run with her or stay behind, stuck in yesterday's fear? This isn't just her story, it's yours too. So stay with me. Because by the end of this message, you'll not only know when she starts the chase, you'll know why nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same again. Would you like the rest of the speech developed as a full sermon with transitions and scripture references? She had been sleeping. Not the kind of sleep that gives rest to the body, but the kind of spiritual slumber that wraps chains around the soul. She walked the halls of her life with a hollow smile, fulfilling duties, meeting expectations, keeping her head down, and making sure not to cause too much noise. And yet deep down in the hidden chambers of her heart, there was a fire waiting to be lit, a whisper that refused to die out, a calling that would not be denied forever. And one day, maybe it was after a loss, maybe in a moment of stillness, maybe when everything else had failed, she heard it. Not with her ears, but with her spirit. It wasn't a loud voice. It wasn't thunder from the heavens. It was a still, small voice. And yet it carried the weight of eternity. It said, "Daughter, rise." This was the awakening, not of ambition, not of vanity, not of temporary passions or fleeting dreams. This was the awakening of destiny. This was when she saw her reflection, not in the mirror of culture, but in the image of God. And suddenly she knew. She knew that what she had been settling for was too small. She knew that what the world told her to be, quiet, soft, invisible, was a lie. She knew that the pain she had walked through, the wounds she carried, the doubts she buried, none of it was wasted. All of it was preparation for the chase. The world had tried to define her by her past, by what she lacked, by what others did to her. But now, in the light of divine revelation, she began to see that she was never meant to crawl. She was never meant to live in fear. She was born to run, not away from purpose, but toward it. And she didn't need anyone's permission to start. Not anymore. Not after what God showed her. The veil had been torn from her eyes. She was not forgotten. She was not overlooked. She was chosen. And when you know you're chosen, you don't walk. You run. You don't hesitate. You move. You don't wait for someone else to validate your mission. You carry it with holy fire. This awakening didn't make her louder in the world sense. It made her clearer. It didn't make her reckless. It made her unshakable. Because now she wasn't running on emotion. She was running on revelation. This was the hour when the ordinary woman became a warrior. When the silent girl became a lioness. And once that awakening happens, you can't unsee it. You can't go back to sleep. You can't fit into what you've outgrown. There is no rewind, only forward, only pursuit. Because when she wakes up, really wakes up, The chase is inevitable. There comes a moment in every life when silence is broken, not by noise, not by the chaos of the world, but by a divine summons that pierces through confusion and fear. It doesn't come with applause. It doesn't come with stage lights. It comes in the secret place. It comes when she least expects it. She might be cleaning the kitchen, driving to work, sitting in a hospital room, or kneeling at the end of herself. But in that moment, something eternal enters the atmosphere. Something unmistakable. A call. Not from man, not from her own ambition, but from heaven itself. And it doesn't suggest, it commands, it doesn't flatter, it commissions. It says, now rise, go. This call is not to chase approval. It's not to chase status or visibility. It is a call to pursue righteousness. To pursue what is holy, not what is trendy. To pursue purpose, not platforms. The world has been telling her to wait until she's ready. Until she's more educated, more polished, more perfect. But God's call comes before perfection. It comes before clarity. It comes in the middle of the mess and says, start running now. And that's when everything changes. Because the moment she hears the call, the chase begins. Not because she has all the answers, but because she finally hears the voice that matters. And let me tell you, when God calls a woman to pursue, no demon in hell can stop her. The forces that tried to break her only built her resolve. The tears she cried became fuel. The night she spent questioning her worth became the ground where she learned to listen for God's whisper. And when that whisper came, it came with fire. It came with direction. It came with authority. It said, you were made for more. You were not created to sit on the sidelines. You are not a background character in someone else's story. You are a daughter of destiny, and I have appointed you for such a time as this. And though the path ahead may be steep, though the road may be lined with thorns, when she hears the call, she moves. Not because it's easy, not because she knows the outcome, but because she knows the one who called her. She knows he doesn't lie. She knows he doesn't waste breath. If he said go, she goes. If he said pursue, she runs. Because his word is enough. And that word doesn't just stir her heart, it wakes her spirit. It puts fire in her bones and vision in her eyes. She no longer chases for the sake of chasing. She pursues because eternity depends on it. Lives depend on it. The next generation depends on it. Heaven is watching and she has answered. This is the call that marks her. This is the call that sends her. This is the call that turns hesitation into holy pursuit. There was a time when her voice was buried under the weight of shame, when every thought was second-guessed, every word rehearsed, every truth swallowed for fear of being too much, too loud, too wrong. She was taught, sometimes by words, sometimes by wounds, that silence was safety, that submission meant invisibility, that obedience meant disappearing. So she stayed quiet. She kept the peace by losing pieces of herself. She let the world speak over her, around her, and for her. And while her lips were sealed, her soul screamed for release. She was not created to be a statue standing still in someone else's story. She was born to declare, to proclaim, to speak with fire and truth and clarity. But somewhere along the way, the silence got comfortable. The silence started to feel like home, until the day it didn't. Because the Spirit of God does not leave his daughters mute. He may allow silence for a season to strengthen her listening, to deepen her discernment, to sharpen her spirit. But he will never let her stay silent forever. There is a moment, oh yes, a holy moment, when the silence is shattered. When the weight on her chest is lifted. When the lie that told her, you have nothing worth saying, is drowned by the voice of her father saying, speak, daughter, now is your time. And in that moment, she doesn't find her voice. She reclaims it. Because it was always there, buried under years of doubt and fear and trauma. But now, it breaks through like a trumpet in the night. Bold, unapologetic, alive. She does not speak to please. She speaks to proclaim. She does not speak to entertain. She speaks to liberate. Her words are not coded in compromise. They are carved in conviction. She's not here to echo the world. She's here to declare the kingdom. And let me tell you, when a woman breaks the silence, heaven rejoices and hell trembles. Because the enemy's power was never in the chains, it was in the silence. If he could keep her quiet, he could keep her bound. But the moment she speaks, chains break. The moment she sings, walls fall. The moment she prays, atmospheres shift. Her voice is not just volume, it is a weapon. It is a sound forged in suffering, anointed by truth and commissioned by grace, and it may not be loud, it may not be eloquent, but it will be pure, it will be honest, it will be fearless. Because this isn't about being heard by men, it's about being obedient to God. She doesn't need a microphone, a title, or a stage. She only needs the unshakable conviction that what's been placed in her cannot stay hidden. The silence was a tomb, but now the stone is rolled away. She has seen too much, felt too much, survived too much. She knows the cost of silence, and she will pay it no longer. She opens her mouth, and what comes out is not just a voice, it is legacy, it is power, it is prophecy in motion. The moment she starts the chase, the resistance begins. The moment she stands up with purpose in her eyes and calling in her bones, the opposition awakens. Don't be fooled. There is no smooth path for the woman who runs with heaven's fire. The gates don't open wide, the road doesn't clear. No, when she starts to move in obedience, the winds rise, the storm swells, and every force that once laid dormant begins to push back. The enemy never bothers the silent. He doesn't chase the passive. But the moment she gets up, the moment she says, "I will not be who I used to be," all of hell throws its weight against her forward motion. Because resistance is not a sign that she's lost her way. It is confirmation that she's found, and she will be met with fear first. Fear that whispers, "You're not enough. You're not ready. You're too broken, too late, too small." And if she listens long enough, fear will sound reasonable. But she does not listen. She remembers who called her, and the voice of her Father does not speak in panic, it speaks in power. Then comes doubt. Doubt doesn't shout, it lingers. It questions every decision. It calls her to turn back, to settle, to delay. But she does not delay. She's learned that doubt is just faith under pressure, and her faith has survived too much to fold now. People will resist her too. Some she loved, some she trusted. Some who praised her when she stayed quiet will now question her every move. Because when she begins to walk in truth, she becomes a mirror, and truth unsettles what's fake. Some will say she's changed, some will call her rebellious, but she won't answer to them. She already answered to God, and His voice outweighs theirs every single time. The resistance isn't just around her, it's within her. The old self doesn't want to die quietly. The habits, the insecurities, the comfort of the familiar, they beg to be kept. But she doesn't negotiate with her past. She doesn't argue with the grave. She knows what resurrection costs, and she's willing to pay it. Every step forward is war, but it's a holy war. A war that shapes her, sharpens her, strengthens her. She doesn't ask for the resistance to stop, she asks for strength to endure it. She doesn't pray for a lighter load, she prays for a stronger back. And every time she gets knocked down, she rises again. Not because she's unbreakable, but because she's unshakable. Not because she's fearless, but because she fears the Lord more than she fears failure. The resistance is real, but so is the anointing. So is the assignment. So is the God who walks beside her. The same power that raised Christ from the dead fuels every step she takes. And though the resistance roars, it cannot overtake her. Because she does not run alone. There is an urgency rising, not from culture, not from politics, not from emotion, but from the throne of heaven itself. An urgency that breaks through complacency and sets the soul ablaze. It is not the panic of the world, it is the pressure of eternity. It is not the rush of ambition, it is the burden of a holy calling. And she can feel it, not just in her mind, but in her bones. She knows that what's ahead of her isn't casual. It's not something to be delayed, discussed, or debated. It must be done, it must be chased. Because heaven is not asking for her opinion. Heaven is releasing a commission. She no longer runs for the applause of people. She runs because time is short. She runs because lives are hanging in the balance. She runs because the hour is later than it's ever been. She doesn't have the luxury of waiting for everything to be perfect. She doesn't have the option to wait for confirmation from those who never understood her calling to begin with. God has spoken. And when heaven speaks, hesitation becomes disobedience. She knows that delayed obedience is still disobedience. So she moves, not because the timing is comfortable, but because the timing is divine. There's no more room for playing small. No more hiding behind humility that is really fear in disguise. Heaven is not casual about her calling. Heaven is not treating her life like it's optional. She's been marked, chosen, anointed for this moment, and there's no going back. When the Spirit says go, you go. When the fire falls, you don't ask for a raincoat, you burn. You burn with vision, you burn with conviction. You burn with the urgency of the kingdom. Because while the world sleeps, the Spirit of God is calling His daughters to run. The assignments she carries are not random. The dreams in her spirit are not accidental. They were written before the foundations of the earth. And now is the time to carry them out. Not tomorrow. Not next season. Not when she feels more qualified. Now. There are chains that will never be broken if she stays silent. There are generations that will never be healed if she doesn't step forward. There are battles that will never be won if she doesn't rise. That's not pressure, that's purpose. And purpose always comes with urgency. She's not driven by fear of missing out. She's compelled by the Spirit. She's not motivated by platforms or praise. She's moved by the reality that souls are at stake. The urgency of heaven doesn't make her frantic. It makes her focused. It doesn't make her anxious, it makes her bold. This isn't about rushing, it's about readiness. God has prepared her, refined her, tested her, and now He releases her. Not as a suggestion, but as a mandate. Not as a hobby, but as a holy mission. She cannot afford to walk when she's been called to run. When God chooses someone, He does not choose them for comfort. He chooses them for endurance. And she, this woman, this runner in the race of heaven, has not been chosen for the easy path. She has been chosen for the lasting one. Because when the chase begins, it is not speed that matters. It is stamina. It is not the flash of the start. It is the faith to keep going when everything inside says stop. And let me tell you, that is where she shines. Not because she's stronger than others, not because she's never stumbled, but because she has learned the secret of the chosen. Keep going anyway. The chosen are not the perfect. They are the persistent. They are the ones who pray when it's dry, who worship when it hurts, who believe when it looks like nothing is changing. That is her strength. The world might admire the loud, the dramatic, the instant success. But heaven watches the quiet warriors. The ones who get back up with scraped knees and bloodied faith and keep chasing what God told them to pursue, even when the sky is silent. She has that kind of endurance, not built in a moment, but forged in fire. There were nights she cried on the bathroom floor and still got up the next morning to serve. Days when the enemy whispered, "It's not working," and she smiled and said, "Watch me move anyway." There were seasons when everything she touched seemed to fall apart, but she held on, not to the plan, but to the promise. Because she knows what most people forget. The call of God doesn't come with constant affirmation. It comes with a covenant. And covenant doesn't quit. When she runs with bruises on her soul, with prayers still unanswered, with battles still raging. But she runs because her endurance isn't flesh, it's spirit. It's not her own strength. It's the power of God made perfect in her weakness. She has learned to lean, learned to trust when she can't trace, learned to walk when she wants to run, and run when walking isn't enough. She's not chasing trends, she's chasing truth. She's not in this for applause. She's in this for legacy. You can't scare her with storms. She's danced in too many. You can't stop her with setbacks. She's turned too many into testimonies. You can't convince her to turn back. She burned the bridges to her past a long time ago. There is a fire in her eyes that says, "I've come too far to quit now." And that fire wasn't lit by ambition. It was lit by an encounter with the living God who said, "You're mine, run with me." So, she does. Through the valley, up the mountain, across the desert, through the fire. Not because it's easy, but because she was chosen for this. Not because she always feels ready, but because she knows who goes with her. And the chosen never run alone. Now, if you've heard nothing else I've said today, hear this. This is the hour. This is the moment when hesitation must bow to conviction. This is when the doubt dies and the daughter rises. This is not just a speech. This is a summons. A call to every woman who has ever felt the tension between who she is and who God called her to be. A call to every heart that has been sleeping, silenced, or sitting still. This is when she starts the chase. Not for fame, not for fortune, but for the finish line of obedience. Let the world say what it wants. Let the storms rage and the resistance roar. She's not running for approval. She's running with assignment. She's not chasing fleeting dreams. She's chasing divine destiny. And I tell you now, as a messenger of the gospel, as a servant of the Most High God, that what God has placed in her will not be stopped by man, by fear, or by failure. Because she's not running in her own strength. She's running by the wind of the Spirit. And if you're listening to this, if your heart is pounding and your spirit is stirring, it's because this word is for you too. You are not too late. You are not too broken. You are not disqualified. You are not invisible. The same God who called Esther from the shadows, Deborah to the battlefield, Mary to carry glory, He is calling you now, not next week, not next year. Now this is when you start the chase, so rise, wipe your tears, dust off your dreams, stand tall, not in pride but in promise. There's a race to run. There's a generation waiting, there's a kingdom coming, and heaven has put your name on the scroll. Step into the fire, step into the unknown, step into the mission. And when they ask you why you're running now, when they ask you why you won't stop, just tell them the truth. This is when she starts the chase.